It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Schick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Just
better.
Fine.
I was about to say, don't everybody speak at once.
I was going to give Liz a chance to show off how well the cold medicine's working.
Yeah.
You know? I'm doing great.
Awesome.
It's fantastic.
Now, if I can't say great anymore, but almost there.
You can.
Swell.
Swell.
I love you, man.
All that Long Island iced tea.
Yeah.
Let's
go, Pete.
There you go. I hope everybody's doing okay out there. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Oh, gosh. I don't really have anything this week. I kind of got a big bag of nothing because it took me until it seemed like the last minute to get caught up and ready for this whole October thing, and so I sort of stopped for a couple of days to just sort of take a little break, and it sort of stretched out all week because it was kind of a crazy week, but
because it felt so good.
it was kind of nice, you know, just kind of chill out for a bit. That's not to say I'm done, but I got the first 3 weeks taken care of at least. I got to find some stuff to watch for the last week, but I got one thing lined up. We'll see if I can find something else.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, I've been sick, so I don't know. Have you guys ever wanted to watch something? Okay, I do a lot of streaming, and you go to search for it, and you're like, oh, that looks interesting, and then, oh, that looks interesting. Half the day goes by, you've watched about 20 different things. I call it falling down the rabbit hole.
A lot of people call it that.
Yeah.
I fell hard down the rabbit hole. I wound up on a documentary called I Love You, Now Die. And
Wow.
yeah.
How pleasant.
It was the girl who was texting her boyfriend when he was committing suicide, and he got out and she told him, get back in the effing truck and do this. And I don't know. I told you guys how I feel about sympathizing for losers. You know, I don't like doing that. You know? I think if you've done something bad, they always try to find an excuse for why you did that and everything else. And, they fell kind of hard. I mean, I was down the rabbit hole when I landed on this documentary, but listening to the defense for this, it's like they really fell down the rabbit hole. But it did. If you guys remember the story in the newspaper, the guy who, he was one of the journalists who really went after her. I think he was with the New York Times, and he's a big part of this documentary. And he was like, you know, we painted a bad picture of her. We, you know, didn't get all the facts before we jumped on our side of the story, and because it's not so hard to believe that a woman can control a man, you know. And, I mean, you know, I think that's a myth. I know my husband does whatever the hell he wants to. So if you're out there and you're listening and you know how to do that.
Control the illusion.
Right. But it was interesting. Like I said, it did give you kind of a deeper look into her mind. And basically what it boiled down to is she didn't live in reality. I mean, not as oh, she's crazy. Homegirl was crazy. I mean, she lived in this alternate reality that she kind of created for herself. And you have this guy who's, when they first meet, he tells her he's depressed and he wants to kill himself. And at first, through these text messages and stuff, you can see where she's trying to, oh, you don't want to do that. And then, like, 2 months before he died, she was over it. It was, yes, heaven needs a hero, and basically kind of pushed this kid into killing himself. I mean, nobody's going to kill themselves if they don't want to, that plain and simple. But she kind of made it easier for him to make that choice. And then when he did, it was kind of like a ploy to get her friends to sympathize for her and hang out with her, which is sad in itself. No one should ever be that lonely, but I don't know. Like I say, it was one of those that definitely, there's two parts to it. If you don't want to sympathize with her, just watch the first part. If you want to understand a little bit more about her psyche and why someone could be that cold-blooded and heartless, to kind of listen to the way they explain things. I don't believe in the medication. They said that she was, how did they put it? Unknowingly intoxicated or something like that with like Prozac or some medicine that they had her on. And so all of it kind of played together. But like I said, it was kind of interesting, and it's kind of one of those you have to stop and you have to rewind it and you have to watch it again, because this was all done through text messages. Their whole relationship, they knew each other for 3 years, but they only met for five different times. So, their whole relationship was text messages. So it's a lot of reading. I think they should have spoke those parts out, but it's a lot of reading. But it was pretty interesting though. But that's on HBO. Like I said, it's called I Love You, Now Die. And they said it's kind of sad. I don't know. Do you guys think that you could, if you tell somebody to, especially in the times that we live in with super fans and that kind of thing, if you tell somebody to kill themselves and they go and do it, are you then responsible for them dying?
Holy crap! That's no, you can't just hit us with that like that. Damn it! No, that's not. No, you can't do that.
I would say it depends how you present it. If you're there pushing, then yeah, you are responsible.
Yeah. I mean, even so much as she helped him research the type of generator he needed to use for the carbon monoxide and everything.
Then she's responsible.
Yeah.
She's at the very least an accessory of some sort.
If it's, since you've already asked the question,
mm-hmm.
because there's been times where I've wanted you to say something like that, but if I say it once, and they do it, then yeah, I mean, I may feel guilty. Am I responsible? I don't know, but that's something different from what you're talking about with her. Because she obviously, it wasn't just her saying it once, just as kind of a reaction to something you said or did. If she actually helped him plan it and get more information, she's responsible. She's just as responsible as he was.
See, they charged her with involuntary manslaughter because they said due to her reckless and something behavior, he wound up losing his life. So because she chose her words, But, it kind of opens you up to a bigger thing. If I had a friend, let alone a boyfriend or a husband or whatever, if I had a friend who texted me and told me they wanted to die, I don't know if I could be like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, I just, I don't know. But they also said that since this was done through text messages, it kind of took the reality of it from her away. That sometimes we forget, especially, I mean, I grew up in the days of IRQ, chat forums and that kind of stuff. And you kind of sometimes forget there's another person that's talking to you, you know, that there's a human behind the screen, you know. And they said that kind of made it like not, it was real to her, but not, this wasn't somebody she saw every day. She talked to him every day, but not that she saw every day, and it was, you know.
Well, and there's a certain boldness. You know, we've talked about keyboard warriors before.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a lot of it, especially in social media. You know, it's easy for someone on one side to just say some of the stuff that they do because they feel that there's no consequences for what they say.
Well, even if there is, how are they going to find me? You know, you got to find me and dox me and, you know, swap me or, you know, whatever they call that now.
When you, I've seen it happen on Twitter.
Yeah.
Remember the whole thing with Spike Lee tweeting the wrong address for them to dox? I think the guy who killed the Skittle kid, Trayvon Martin.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what was his name?
I don't remember his name.
Zimmerman.
Yeah, he tweeted the wrong address, and that caused problems. I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Because I've seen something kind of similar to that regarding a subject matter that we won't talk about because honestly we don't want to talk about it.
Right.
But I've seen doxing going on there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also saw this video. I had to call Brandon in there because I'm sorry, I know it's serious, but I seriously was laughing my ass off. But it wasn't funny, and I'm sorry, but 15-year-old kid was on Xbox playing with his friends and everything else. Apparently he got owned, and he got mad, and he threatened them. I'm going to go to school tomorrow, and I'm going to kill you guys, you know. Oh, yeah, you're not going to do anything. Oh, yeah, my dad's got a gun. I'm going to kill you guys. Where there were 7 kids that he threatened that all went to the same school and stuff. So the cops go out to his house. Kid is bawling his eyes out because the cop's like, man, you in this day and age, you can't make threats like that, you know. And the sad part about this, why it wasn't funny, is his mom was sitting there. Oh, he's a good boy. He would never do that.
I think I've seen that video. It's like in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just like he didn't mean that. It was just a joke and stuff like that. And it's like, and they're talking there. It's like, well, we got to take this serious because if we don't, and
he goes to
happens,
school. Because he even asked her. He says, "Do you have a gun?" Well, yeah. Can he get to it? Well, yeah, but he would never do that because he's a good boy. And he's like, ma'am, you don't.
Can't know that.
Me as a parent, you never, ever, 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 ever let your child hear you say, he would never do that. He's a good boy. Because you have just written them a blank check to do whatever the hell they want because my mom won't believe that I did that because I'm a good boy. You know, it just,
I got news for you. Just about every shooter or whoever else that's done something, the first thing that was going to be out of people's mouths is, I didn't think he would do something like that. He didn't seem that way.
Or their parents. He was normally such a good boy. Yeah. Well, I just,
he was quiet, never bothered anybody. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How many mass murderers fit that description? Come on.
Exactly. So that, you know, and that's what he was trying to explain to the mom is you can't do that anymore because she's like, it's just a game. Well, that's how a lot of this stuff starts. Do you guys not remember the EA tournament that got shot up? That's just a game and people died, you know, from a good boy who would never do that, you know. So it's like, Jesus, people. And then, you know, along with, you know, this girl and the text messages and this kid with the video games, parents, watch your kids. Know what they're doing. I was constantly in my kid's life. Who are you with? Where are you going? When you going to be back? Call me when you get there. Call me when you're leaving. I mean, I was that mom. But I always knew what my kids were doing. You ain't going to come to me and tell me what my kids did because I know what they're doing, you know. I was the hangout house. All the kids were here. I'd rather have them here drinking my drinks and eating my food than not knowing where they were at and what they were doing, you know. But a lot of this, I'm not going to take the blame off the person who does this wrong. But parents, there's warning signs. They give them to you. You know? Look, listen, pay attention, you know. Get your head out of your phone and look at your kid. What are they doing?
That's hard.
Yeah, but only for 18 years, and then it's over.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I watch my kid like a hawk.
That's me. And, you know, if my kids were like, oh, it's because you don't trust me. No, I trust you because I raised you and I put morals into you and respect into you. It's all these other little Johnnies around you that I don't trust them at all. I don't know their parents. I don't know what morals they have, or, you know, do they do drugs, or you know, what's going on? But, yeah, I mean, I was that parent. But my kids have never been in jail. They've never been in serious trouble, and they're good. They're good boys. They'd never do.
Careful now. One of them listens to this show.
But see, he's an adult now. I've done
enough.
my job. You know, if you didn't get it in the 18 years I pounded it into your head, then you ain't going to. Yep. But I'm no longer responsible for that. So yeah, that was my rabbit hole.
That was your soapbox.
You took us down the rabbit hole with you there. Jeez.
Right, it turned into a soapbox. But yeah, that's what got me. And you know, the parents of the girl wanted to blame the boy and everything else, and not once did they admit what their daughter did was fucked up. You know, at least say, I'm sorry. You know, she didn't want him to die, but I'm sorry my kid inflicted this kind of pain upon you guys, you know?
Right. Was even a part of it. I mean,
yeah.
It wasn't the kid's fault. The kid contributed.
Yeah. That she knew and didn't say something to somebody. You know, a cop, a teacher, a parent, a coach, somebody.
Anybody,
you know?
Right.
Yep. And he had told her, if you tell somebody, I'll hate you. You know what? Hate me, because at least you'll be alive to hate me, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's on HBO if anybody would like to watch that.
I feel like I already have. Jeez.
Right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, it played out pretty hard in the media, too, though. And I think she just came up for parole and they denied it. I think she'll serve every day because she stayed out for like a year and a half while her appeals were going on. And
that doesn't
then
usually go over well.
No. And so I think she'll serve, you know, every. Plus, not only that, if that was my kid, I'd be at every hearing of hers and say, nope, you never showed remorse. You never said you were sorry. Rot. You know?
You're clearly not ready to be a member of our society.
Yep. You don't know the rules.
So how about you, Les?
Are you sure you don't want to go? Because following her is so damn difficult.
But you do it so well.
Oh, thanks. We'll try. We'll forge ahead. This past week, I started getting wrapped up into reading, or not necessarily reading, but watching film about the Quantill Raiders, a southern group of bandits that were forming in Missouri and in Kansas that would hold raids on the Northerners during the Civil War. And William Quantrill was the leader, and among his group were the James brothers, Frank and Jesse.
Yep.
And this was prior to their outlaw years. But it's just been interesting to me to find out about this group and see what exactly drove them. Some of it is kind of loony, but it's interesting nonetheless. So I've been looking into that about every chance I could. It's just an interesting story.
I'm kind of interested in that because I remember seeing a couple old westerns where either it was focusing on the Raiders or it was mentioned in passing because it was about the James brothers. The film was about the James brothers. Yeah, I think one of them was even an Audie Murphy film.
Yes.
So, yeah, that'd be kind of interesting to check out.
It would be.
I don't have a lot to report on myself. I have been it's just a little bit of this and that, and of course working on stuff for the website and getting some very positive feedback from our announcement about being allied with Comic Book for Kids, and we do appreciate the feedback we have received so far. And that's a good segue. Might as well go ahead and mention the upcoming events while I'm at it. Of course, our monthly meet and gab for October will be Saturday, October 12th at 7 p.m. Wing City. There's already an event on the website and a Facebook event. We do these every second Saturday of the month. If y'all want to come hang out with us and kind of talk about anything that's going on in the geek universe, by all means. And now, if you'd like to donate comics for Comic Books for Kids, we would be happy to accept them. If they're new or like new, all ages or teen comics, we would be happy to take those. And then, of course, our big donation drive on Saturday, October 26th, which is Halloween Comic Fest. And we will be at Red Pegasus Comics, which is located at 1319 North Bishop Avenue in Dallas. And we will be there from noon to 4. So if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, of course, come on by and donate, like I said, new or like new comics, all ages to teens. And actually for the month of October, if you go by Red Pegasus and drop off 10 comics, you get 10% off your entire purchase. So that's a great deal. Mm-hmm. And we do appreciate Gabriel and Kenneth for helping us out. And like I said, go to the website. There's all the information is on the events page, but there's also a page specifically designed for Comic Books for Kids. You'll see it listed at a tab as CB4K, and there'll be links on frequently asked questions regarding comic book donations. And if you want to do monetary donations, which is great, that would be great because then the money goes to shipping the comics across the United States and in Canada. We're going to need to talk to Mark about how things are going in Canada. That would be cool. It'd be cool to be able to send books out to Canada, too.
Yep.
All the information's there. So we definitely appreciate your support however you can.
And also, while you're on the website, if you go to community and read some of those stories, oh my goodness. Bring some tissues.
Yeah, and that website is comicbooksforkids.org, or it'd be easier for you to just do www.cb4k.org, and I'll get you there. All right, I'm still kind of on cloud nine from doing the announcement and then the positive feedback. So I'm ready to start gathering up some comics and getting to kids' hands. So, which we're working on doing being able to go visit children's medical center and drop off the comics to kids. That would be great. We're working on that. So we'll let y'all know about that as well. Alrighty. I know Mike's excited. It is October. It is our horror month. And we are specifically looking at the films of one Vincent Price.
Yay!
Mm-hmm.
Is he the first actor you think of if you think about horror movie actors? Just out of curiosity. Or horror icons. Is he the first one you think of, or is he one of the first couple that you think of?
He's in the top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
Of course, he's right in that kind of that wheelhouse of where I tend to go when I'm watching horror movies anyway. I kind of prefer some of the older stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I'll go all the way back as far as I can, but there's a lot of stuff in like the 50s and 60s that's kind of where my wheelhouse is for those kind of movies. And so, yeah, he's very, very much on the list
Mm-hmm.
for me.
For me, he's right up there with Bela Lugosi.
For me, he's right up there. It would change. I guess it would change it on a daily basis. I guess it depends on my mood, but he would be right up there in the top 3 with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. I would think of those 3. Yeah, I mean, Bela Lugosi's a great one. Boris Karloff's another good one. Lon Chaney. If you want to think a little bit more recent, you could probably say Robert Englund, maybe. Tony Todd, maybe. I'm sure I'm missing a few. It's kind of a different animal now than it was back then.
Yeah. It is.
It is.
You could almost go Vin Diesel. But, I mean, honestly, he's kind of had more of a career since the whole Riddick thing. But I always liked him as Riddick. But, yeah. So, again, it seems like there are fewer, like you say, iconic type horror stars than there used to be. I think partly because of kind of differences in the way. I mean, you just don't have the kind of franchise type stuff anymore like you used to. When you do, it's something like Saw, and I mean, I don't even know the guy's name off the top of my head. So, I mean, kind of takes the whole iconic thing out of it.
Yeah, I know who you. Oh God, I'm so blanking on his name right now.
Tobin?
Tobin Bell.
Tobin Bell.
Yeah. You know, you could. Kane Hodder, who was Jason for some of the films, but then but that's pretty much. He's pretty much just done that, or some of the other clones, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely a different animal. How about you, Les?
Current, I think of Rob Zombie. I think of. I'm not thinking much anything. As far as price goes, I thought he was the most elegant of the horror stars. He was the widest scene that I can recall. He had so many movies.
Yeah.
But the first name that I probably think of is Karloff.
Yeah.
Just because of his initial film, which made me find horror in the first place.
Yeah, and he did some other stuff too. And see, it's interesting to see. We talked about Bela Lugosi a little bit ago. The kind of setting those two side by side. I mean, they're the two that you think of from that era. But Bela Lugosi was really not in very many movies, whereas Karloff was in a ton of stuff. Mm-hmm. He just wasn't always kind of in the forefront. And so it's an interesting parallel, I think.
I agree.
That is true. I think for me, Bela Lugosi played more of the parts of the monsters I liked, I guess. Or vampires, or, That's why he always sticks out to me.
Well, Lugosi did play all 3 of the major monsters. Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm. Over like a 30-year span.
Right.
Whereas Karloff was in 3 or 4 movies a year there for 10 years or so. I mean, but it was usually roles. He wasn't always the monster in the role. He was sometimes kind of off on the side, but yeah.
True.
He worked a lot more.
See, and I didn't know who Bela Lugosi was until I got into the Bajas. I was young, young, stupid, didn't know nothing. But they have a song called Bela Lugosi's Dead. And I'm like, who's Bela Lugosi? And why are they singing about him being dead? So, any of y'all a Bajas fan?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Who?
Heard of them. Bauhaus.
Yeah.
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 I've heard of them. I've never really got into it.
Well, anyway, Vincent Price. So for the month of October, we will be focusing on the horror films of this very classy actor. I was trying to kind of come up with some more.
Legendary.
Again,
Legendary,
iconic,
definitely
what you
legendary.
said earlier.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for this week, we're actually going to be focusing on one film, and the reason why I did this, because when I was trying to lay this out, I figured this film was kind of important because while it's not his first horror film, he had actually done a couple of horror films several years earlier. This pretty much, in my opinion, springboarded him into this genre, and it was kind of like where he really took off.
Yeah, it put him on the map for sure.
Definitely put him on a map. But he had a very well respected career till then. He'd been doing a lot of work. He'd done a lot of work, whether it was as films villains or supporting cast members and all that. He had a nice career.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about it earlier today, where could we name someone who's a little bit more recent that had a very well-established career and may have had some success here and there, never, something like that. And at some point, something happens, and then all of a sudden their career kind of kicks into a second gear. And it may not be the same, but it's kind of similar. I was thinking of Leslie Nielsen.
That's the first thing I thought of when you started this.
Leslie Nielsen was a established dramatic actor. He'd done some comedy, but he was usually the straight man. The first thing I can think of was A Reluctant Astronaut, starring Don Knotts. And he's been in some well-regarded films. I mean, even Forbidden Planet and stuff like this. But it wasn't until Airplane that all of a sudden people saw him in a different light. Because all of a sudden he's doing this comedy that just doesn't make sense, but he did it so well that he kept doing it for the rest of his career and the rest of his life. So you were thinking along the same lines as me, okay? Mm-hmm. So I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, he'd been acting for 20, 25 years already.
Yeah.
And had done some stuff. Had done some leading man stuff, nothing hugely successful, and had done some really cool supporting stuff, and then just, I don't know, he actually kind of had been out of the spotlight for a little bit when the Airplane thing came along, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, pretty much relegated to guest appearances on TV shows, but then again, a lot of actors do that, especially in the 70s and 80s. Not that they don't do it now, but that's pretty much...
honestly, Vincent Price did it a little bit.
That's true. Hell, Vincent Price was on Brady Bunch, so.
The Muppets, Sesame Street. Yep, he'd been all over the place.
Yep.
Scooby.
So, for today's episode, we are focusing on the 1953 film House of Wax. And if anybody's interested in what the horror films that he had done earlier, was actually Tower of London, which was a Karloff film, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And then Return of the Invisible Man, which was actually a sequel to Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, if I'm not mistaken, because he had he had a cameo at the end of that film. It was his voice as the Invisible Man.
Hmm.
So, for today, we'll be talking about the film 1953 film House of Wax, which was actually a remake. And I did not know that until I stumbled onto the original film a few months ago, called Mystery of the Wax Museum. And I started watching this. I was like, I've seen this movie before. I know this plot. So I started looking into it. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
That's why. Right.
That's why.
Yeah. It's on the DVD I picked up of House of Wax has that on it. I have not had a chance to watch it yet. I am curious to.
Yeah, it actually has Fay Ray in it.
Yeah. It does.
I didn't get that one on mine. I bought it on Amazon, so I don't know if there's any extras, but...
So the premise of the film is Price is a wax sculptor of incredible talent and has a wax museum, but it's not really bringing in the crowds. The people are not really coming in, checking out his work, and he has the opportunity to get a new financier. But the gentleman was actually taking a trip, if I'm not mistaken, was going to be out of the country for a couple of months, but come back, and then they're going to work the arrangements. And so Price's character is happy. You know, his partner, the guy can buy out the partner, and so things are looking good for him. But the partner says, "No, I want my money now," and decides to burn down the wax museum and take Price's character out at the same time. Spoiler alert, Price's character survives, comes back.
With his face melted.
Scarred physically and mentally to the point where he starts killing people and using them as the dummies for his brand new wax museum. And so that's pretty much the premise of the film, right?
It is.
It is,
Yep.
Yeah. See, and my question was, okay, yeah, they looked lifelike and everything else, but wouldn't it start to stink?
Well, I'm sure he figured that out.
I suspect that. I mean, they're at least whether it's realistic or not. The sealing them in wax. I mean, you're sealing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you go buy an apple candle and it still smells like apples inside the wax. Right? You got something putrid and
Well, I don't think they put
dead.
a whole apple in it and then just sort of dip it in wax and call that a candle either. I think it's a little more complicated than that.
Liz, here's your answer. It is a movie.
Right.
Yeah, quit overthinking it.
I know, but that was one of the first things. It was like, I wonder why nobody would smell that.
Well, there are ropes around the thing so that people can't get too close,
Homegirl walked up the wood to check to see if she had a hole in her ear.
Homegirl crossed the rope line to do it. She broke the rules.
More than once.
Yes, it was a little much, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
See if it was done.
I do like the way that was referenced. Homegirl.
I forgot her name. Was it Sue? Sue or... I think it was Sue. Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty sure it was not Homegirl, but
yeah.
Right.
But see,
it could have been her nickname. No.
They could have set in in the decade of the 1900s.
Yeah,
You
early
should hear him
1900s.
say it. Hey, homegirl, come be my mantroette or marionette. What is her name?
Marie Antoinette.
Wow.
Antoinette.
Marie Antoinette.
Very.
Come be my Pinocchio.
There you go.
Marie Antoinette was the wife of Louis the 14th of France.
Yeah.
The 14th? No, 16th. I forget. One of the Louis.
I'm thinking it's 14. But I'm,
Famously misquoted as once
Let 'em eat
saying, "Let him eat cake." Yes, Marie Antoinette.
you're right, Louis 16th.
16th.
So,
Okay, right. 14th was the Sun King.
All right.
Different Louis.
And also known as Louis Louis.
Say the eighth was Herman and the Hermits, right?
That's Henry VIII.
That was
Yes, Henry.
I'm Henry VIII. I am. Anyway.
I am. Yep.
Oh, go ahead. Continue, please.
I never thought there would be a day that there would be a Peter Noon reference on our show.
Oh, why not? Jeez.
I mean, yeah, I get it.
Everything else was hitting.
I mean, Mrs. Brown does have a lovely daughter, so, you know.
Cuckoo, cuckoo.
That's not Herman's Hermits. You got to quit crossing up your references, Liz. Come on.
Like crossing the streams, damn it.
Same time period.
That was the Eggman.
Yeah.
But anyway, British invasion. It's close enough.
They all look the same.
They did all look the same. I think that was kind of the point for a while there.
And the thing about this film, and we kind of talked about this in pre-show, is that it was the first color 3D feature from a major American studio, and it was also the first 3D film with stereophonic sound. And the 3D doesn't hold up as well. I mean, the whole sequence with the yo-yo guy.
Yeah, the paddle ball dude. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, the paddle ball. Yeah,
wow.
the paddle ball.
Was that a stretch or what?
Yeah, and that girl passing out. I was like, what?
Oh yeah. Well, you know.
Why was
that was
that
comic
queer?
relief.
That was a comic relief thing. That
Okay.
wasn't, yeah, that was no. That didn't have anything to do with the paddle balls. I did love the story I read about the 3D aspect of that film, and it was actually it was Vincent Price that was quoted talking about it. That for some odd reason, to direct the first major studio 3D film, they found a director with one eye who really didn't have any way to appreciate the idea that it was a 3D film.
That's right.
Apparently, Andre de Toth, the director, didn't really have any depth perception to start with, and for some reason he's in there directing a 3D movie.
Oh, it makes total sense to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Doesn't it, though?
He had an eye for it.
Oh, just the one, though.
Wow.
And he was amazed that people were reacting to the 3D process, because obviously, without that depth perception, he had no idea what the hell was going on.
Yeah, he didn't get it.
It was a blurry screen to him.
He plain and simple didn't get it. I mean, he did it and put the movie together and all that, but yeah, I mean, the paddleball guy was a little.
That was definitely much. And really, wasn't that basically the only 3D sequence of the whole thing? Am I remembering correctly? I mean, it's been a bit since I've seen the film.
Not to me.
When they
Opening
were
credits.
well, there was the opening credits, and there was when
right.
what's his nuts? The partner was burning down at the beginning when he was burning down the original museum. He was like squirting gasoline towards the screen and all that stuff, and then there was the flames. But I mean, it didn't really have that big of a visual effect, honestly.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that if you didn't know it was supposed to be a 3D movie, it wouldn't have even phased anybody.
That's probably why I don't remember that.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know it was a 3D movie. Like I said, I bought mine off of Amazon to watch it again, and you know how most of the time you get those like blurred lines around,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't. It didn't seem that way at all. Like he said, I would not have known that was a 3D movie if you guys hadn't said something, or if I would have researched it.
Right. Yeah, because they made a big deal out of it at the time. It was on the posters and everything. They made a big deal. I mean, but nowadays you don't always see. I mean, you're not going to see a movie poster for a 65-year-old movie necessarily, unless you go looking for it.
Right.
So that you didn't see that is not a big deal.
Well, and I did think that the opening credits, it was kind of like, wow, that was kind of advanced for the time, the lettering and stuff. See, that was my design kicking in, but
right.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And it looked like it was like melting wax texture over them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it was very pretty for what it was, and for when it was.
You know, a lot of times too, when you watch an older movie, you're like, okay, you this is cheesy because but I didn't get a lot of that from this film either. I mean, there was a couple of times with the bodies and that kind of thing that were kind of, you can tell that was a dummy, but it was like 1953.
Yeah, you expect that.
Yeah. So for how far we had come at that point with movies, I think this one was done really well.
Well, and yeah, I mean, you talk about that, and some of those dummies that you're talking about, some of them were just really well done too.
They were.
I mean, like they had
like all the girls in the morgue.
Well,
those were really well done.
Those might have been real. I don't know, but
those were real 3D.
Dang. No, I'm thinking of the wax bust of Charles Bronson and his character.
Yeah.
That was a really, I mean,
yeah,
that was a well done bust. I mean, just clearly they didn't. I mean, it wasn't his head because it was just a head, but it really did look like the character.
Well, and hers too.
Yeah.
Well, while I was watching this, I did get some feel for 3D because they had layered. I know it was just a flat film you're watching, but there seemed to be a layer of depth in there too. So I was seeing where, wow, this would have been great in the original 3D format, because I can actually see a slight difference, distance between items. So I enjoyed that part.
Yeah, there was some interesting camera angles.
The flames, the flames were definitely a 3D production, and there was one of the figures that was melting, but it was behind a banister, and it was, to me, it just creepy as hell. See that face and the smile on it as it was burning, and then they came back to it and it was melting. I went, now that's just freaking creepy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really well done scene visually. That whole burning down the.
Yeah.
I mean, they made a point of doing a lot of close-ups on some of those melting dummies, and it was a really cool effect, really.
That was. Although that was another part of the movie I was thinking, if this was real, he would have had time to go upstairs and get his books and go check on the supposed to be dead guy and go back out and come back. It was like, what? This place would have been down to the ground, that much flammable stuff, and he's also pouring gas.
Yeah, he's throwing gas like there's no tomorrow, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they said, it takes 3 minutes for a house to burn to the ground? So, he had quite a while. And 2 fights.
But if you want to go on nitpicking, when Price entered the woman's bedroom at her friend's.
Which time?
He
He did a lot of creeping around in her bedroom.
When he swung in on the cable or on the rope,
Yeah.
and she was scared and screamed, and he got out of there. The woman came in and said, "Are you all right?" He says, "Yes, I saw him." She started hugging the girl, hugging Sue. And if you look out the window, lady, there's the rope hanging there.
Still there.
How did you not see this?
Well,
How are you
and if
not
the guy-
reacting?
If a guy's chasing you around the night before wanting to kill you, would you sleep with your window open the next day?
Depends how much fresh air there was, I guess.
Depends on what time of year it is, and I mean, because there's no air conditioning. This is the 1900s, man.
Yeah.
The very
we're talking
early
it
1900s.
Dead o'clock. Guy chased her to the house that she's sleeping in. He knows where you're at. He was in the bedroom of your friend that he killed. Yeah, let's leave my bedroom window open. Might as well left him milk and cookies.
I repeat,
It's a movie.
is
I know.
a
I know.
movie.
You know, when you're doped out on NyQuil, these are little things that stick out to you.
Sounds like it's kicking in.
I was just saying, I can't argue with that at all.
And when he's chasing her through town, I was like, man, I bet he wishes he was Freddy Krueger right now and he'd be running a little faster. She'd be speeding and he'd just be walking and be in front of her.
There are so many references here. I will throw this one out though. Talking about being doped up on NyQuil, watching movies like this. That was the state I was in the first time I watched Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow. I mean, that one you have to make sure you're sober even when you're sober watching
Yeah,
it.
I wasn't. And it was an interesting experience, let me tell you.
I bet.
But anyway, digressing.
We never do that.
Oh, no, not at all. No such thing as a tangent on this show. Pretty sure all of last week was a tangent, but that's all right.
But as much as I bust on it, like I said, I did enjoy this movie.
Oh, yeah.
It was one that I definitely didn't pause or, it keeps you entertained. It does.
Yeah, I thought for its time, I thought it was paced pretty well. I mean, a lot of movies in this time frame are really slow, but this one moved pretty well.
It did.
I mean, maybe not like Fast and the Furious type pacing, but it's definitely not the draggy movie from that era that you kind of get used to after a while.
And it's only 80. The runtime is only 88 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna run into a lot of that this month.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of these movies are not.
So her friend Mona had a date the night that she died. Was that him? Because she said the man who picked her up was gray. And, when he came back, actually he looked better with his mask on than I think at the very beginning of the movie. But, he did have gray in his beard and his hair at that point. So was that her date?
Are we talking about Kathy?
Was it Kathy? Was she
Yes.
the Joan of Arc?
Joan of Arc? Yeah, that was Kathy.
The Carolyn Jones.
Kathy.
No, her date was the partner.
Yeah, the partner to burn down the
He was the guy who burned down in the
Matter of
first
fact,
scene.
Yeah.
That was the date. And this was
No, that
a
was
couple
after
years later.
because she had made the joke that he killed himself instead of marrying her.
Yeah.
And then whenever the girl had mentioned, well, she only has one hole in her ear because she wore an earring, and they were like, well, maybe that was her date, and she said, no, the guy that picked her up was gray.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe it was it Vincent, and that's how she got drugged and in her drink.
I'm
See, they
I'm
never
going to say yes. That
Okay.
they were two different people, or they were they were the same man. this
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
Because her gray man was a bit older, she said, than than Burke that hung himself.
Yeah.
So that's how he gained access to the apartment.
She said it was more than likely something she drank, but she'd been dead for a couple hours, and it's like, well, that wasn't a real long date.
Nope.
Have to slip her a roofie and send her home, you know.
Yeah, well, they didn't have those designer roofie drugs back then. They had to use much more hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
Just go straight to the ether, basically.
Right. And I think if I thought a guy had killed my friend and had her displayed in his museum, I don't think I'd let my boyfriend go work for him. That'd be like a deal breaker for me. And I'm definitely not going to meet you there.
Okay, so one, he was a cousin, not a boyfriend.
Was it a cousin?
I think so. Wasn't he a cousin? Or am
I thought he said that he was a friend of her mom's. His mom was a
okay.
friend of her mom's.
Maybe I misheard that originally. See, and I'll admit this is a movie that I thought I had seen until I watched it. And I'm about halfway into this movie, and I'm like, holy crap, I've never seen any of this before. I thought I had seen this before. So apparently I was watching it the first time.
I think I was remembering the newer one, which is a little different than this one completely. But
Oh, yeah.
The one with Alicia Cuthbert?
yeah, so
And,
yeah.
and Paris Hilton.
yeah. See, I'm a horror sucker though. I will go watch anything that if it's if it's supposed to be scary, I'll go see it. Just because. But there's not a lot that I'll go, oh my god, that was scary,
A horror sucker.
Mm-hmm.
A vampire.
I am. Yep. Yep. When it comes to horror movies.
Okay.
Not going near that one.
Time for one of them fancy segues we have or something. I don't know.
Something, yeah.
Please hit the segue button.
Wait, we have a button for that?
Saying, who has that?
But yeah, having admitted that this was the first time I'd seen it, I really liked it.
Me too.
Now, of course, we know that Charles Bronson was in this, but he was under what? Charles Buczynski?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he was listed as. Yeah.
And the
Which
guy that
character was he?
He was the mute. He was Igor, the mute assistant.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
This is.
He was made up.
Okay,
yeah,
so I was like, I totally did not recognize him.
The pre mustache.
Yeah.
Pre mustache.
The mustache came way later, but
He was Igor.
yeah.
Huh.
He was the guy sneaking around in the background with the apron, and didn't say a word.
and the actor that played the other assistant, he was the one that was blackballed.
Blacklisted.
Thank you. And that's how come he did not get on the credits. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the story I saw.
Yeah. That was a crazy time.
Which actually, it's a shame too, because
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did a pretty dang good job with that role.
There wasn't much to do.
No, but he had, like, the whole interrogation thing was pretty intense.
Right.
Yeah.
He had to pretend to be an alkie.
I say he sold them out quick for a drink, though, didn't he?
Well, that
He
was
did it. He killed this guy and killed this guy because killed this guy. Now go get him and give me that drink.
Wow. Okay. She bitches about this and she bitches about that, but I love the movie.
oh God, that's the whole point of all this anyway.
Yeah.
We're all doing it. We're all complaining about
yeah.
certain things.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and you can still enjoy it and go, man, that was messed up.
Fair enough.
But that's true alcoholic, though, you know.
Oh yeah. Yep. It was an accurate portrayal.
Mm-hmm.
Almost as accurate as Days of Wine and Roses.
Not sure I've seen that one either.
So,
I know I haven't seen that one.
does it ring a bell?
Emmy winner.
Okay.
This year?
Emmy's TV. No, not this year.
Oh.
Emmy winner's fine. I don't watch a hell of a lot of TV, so especially not from the 60s or whenever the hell that was. Yes, we're uncultured. Are you surprised?
We're not.
Now, according to this, in 2013, they actually put out a 3D Blu-ray.
Ooh, that's not what I got.
No.
And they include the Mystery of the Wax Museum film as well. That would be cool.
Yeah, mine's a DVD that has clearly been out a while and not a lot of production value was put into it. I mean, the movie looks great. But
You're talking about the DVD.
Yeah.
Right. I understand.
See, and that's another thing for the time period. Color movies look kind of fake, I guess. And you didn't really get that with this one either, or I didn't.
Yeah, I think sometimes part of the color, the way they did color back then was different, and I think there was a lot of filtering going on, and
Yeah.
I think in some cases that really kind of made things look weird. This
I know
one
it was
had
dark.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of this one was supposed to be set at night too, which you also get with a lot of scary movies at the time. But it seemed, I mean, if there was a filter going on here, it was kind of a brownish filter, maybe a little orangey. So it was not real. It wasn't especially jarring.
Yeah.
If it was there. So you kind of didn't notice it as much, I think. I think you would almost want to do something like that if you were trying to give the impression of, I mean, honestly, like oil lighting, oil lamps. That would be a good color scheme to go with for that. So, I don't know. Or, if you're going to bounce a bunch of paddle balls in toward the camera.
Right.
I thought that was kind of effective.
The paddle balls?
Yeah.
It was...
I know I'm the only one, but hey.
I don't think any of us are knocking the fact that it adds the sense of 3D to it. It just...
Yeah.
My issue was that it just didn't seem to fit. It didn't fit the story. It didn't fit the situation. I mean... Yeah, sure, it's intended to be a spectacle because the guy's out there
trying to drum up he's trying to drum up attention to the
yeah, he's trying to get people to go into the museum. So he's basically trying to get people's attention. I mean,
it did.
Were paddle balls really that unique a thing? In that time period, I mean, I seem to recall them having them in the 1870s in Blazing Saddles, so they've been around a while.
Yeah, but those were warped.
Those were warped, but maybe that was the problem. Maybe finding good ones was the hard part.
Yeah.
I didn't get a harumph out of that guy.
No,
But
you still had.
you look at the idea of hitting 3 of those into your mouth. That's kind of different.
Oh, sure, the guy was good, no doubt about it. Yeah, I don't think anybody's berating the talents of whatever that guy's name was.
It's just weird.
Yeah, it just seemed a little out of place to me.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Mike.
You guys don't watch SpongeBob, but I was wondering if he was doing the Dirty Bubble Challenge.
I don't think
You're
I
right,
know what
because I
that
got
means.
no idea.
I don't think I even want to know what that means because it sounds bad.
And for the record, his name was Reggie Rimmel. Rimmel. R-Y-M-A-L.
There you go.
A stand-up comedian in the 1950s. He used his expertise with a paddleball to entertain audience at nightclub acts throughout the country. He also appeared as guest on such television programs as The Steve Allen Show, The Eddie Cantor Show, and You Asked for It.
No, I didn't.
Best remembered as the street barker who uses the paddleball in a demonstration of the 3D effects for the film House of Wax.
So cool.
There you go. Cool. Good for him.
And it was a great way to use the 3D effect, you know.
Mm-hmm. Makes me wonder who gave the director the idea, given that how would he know?
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That was probably a higher up decision, more than likely.
Yeah, that probably came from a producer of some sort.
We need more 3D effects. Let's get a guy beating balls out in the front of this.
Well, I mean, they probably know it by
cowbell.
name. More cowbell.
Yeah.
They probably say, hey, let's get this Reggie, what's his face?
Rimmel.
Yeah. He's a big hit on many of the variety shows of the day.
I saw him on You Asked for It, so let's do it.
Absolutely. Let's ask
Well,
him.
he was also on Spike Jones.
Well, there you go.
Episode of Spike Jones, and then the Colgate Comedy Hour.
You know, you can find bits from the Spike Jones show on YouTube. I watched a few of those. They're pretty interesting.
I need to do that.
Me too.
No, they are fun. I agree.
Well, we talked about Charles Bronson, but we didn't really talk about the fact that Carolyn Jones was in this film as well.
Morticia.
She sure
Morticia.
was. She doesn't look much like Morticia in this movie.
No, she doesn't sound like her either.
No, not so much.
Is she the
No, but
blonde?
with the,
Yes.
She was the blonde.
She was
Oh,
Kathy.
wow.
She was Kathy. Joan of Arc.
Joan of Arc. Yeah, her annoying laugh. Oh, man. It's like that's enough to make me hang myself in an elevator.
Wow.
Oh. But I'm taking it the other business that had to happen quick was this trip with her that he was trying to get the money for and made it sound like an investment.
Well, sort of.
And then I thought it was cute. Where do you want to go? Atlantic City? It's like, you come into some money. My husband better be asking me, you want to go to Hawaii, the Bahamas, Greece? Let's go to Atlantic.
Yeah, 100 years ago, travel was different.
Yeah, true.
Admittedly, I mean, from New York, I think this was set in New York, right?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, Atlantic City's not that far from New York, but it's not like there was Vegas. Didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That was their Vegas.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah,
Yeah.
the options are
That was
different.
cool.
Yeah, that whole thing seemed a little awkward, for sure.
Yeah. I didn't know that was Morticia, though. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, when they cinched that outfit on her, good Lord. That gave me pains.
Yeah, she had a tiny, tiny waist.
Yeah, that was, and that went on a lot in that time
Mm-hmm.
frame. That was historically accurate, to say the least. Some of that went on up until like the 50s.
Well, and even today it's kind of coming back with the corset training and that kind of thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which, of course, now we know the medical concerns behind some of those. You know, like squeezing your guts out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Do you have to train that?
Mm-hmm. You have to train your waist to take them.
Well, the deal is you clamp down your waist like that so that you don't have to wear a corset all the time. You're training it to be smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It's like binding feet, like in China. I mean, you only have to do it for so long, and then it just your feet grow in that formation. And
But most girls who get heavily into the waist training, especially when they have a waist that tiny like that, usually they won't go without wearing a corset. So I don't know why they call it training, because
well, it's probably because they can squish it. The more they do it, the tighter they can squish it down.
right, because you're always going to be smaller,
Right.
you know. But there's also women who have severely messed themselves up because, you know, you got organs and stuff in there that have to go somewhere, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little different than a spank. But no, I thought she looked absolutely gorgeous in this movie. And, you know, with the black wig on as Joan of Arc, I should have seen that, you know. Because once you guys told me, it was like, yeah, that was her. That was.
Sometimes we inform.
Yeah. Pretty smart fellers.
Don't hang your hat on that.
Yeah, well, let's not get crazy here. Jeez.
So,
Yes.
House of Wax. Good movie.
Yes.
I'll say it's a pretty good movie. I didn't find it scary, but it was a pretty good movie.
Scary's relative. I mean, it's 1953. How scary is it really going to be, honestly?
Yeah.
It's more, I mean, honestly, most of that stuff fits more into what got classified in the pulp area as weird rather than scary. But it's all good. Yep, I liked it.
Me too. And I think when you watch a movie like this, you can tell where our censors have let up. Because if you notice, you never saw him kill anyone. You saw shadows of it or reference of it, but you never saw him kill that person. Today, they'd show you, there'd be blood all over the screen, and, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd hear the sound of his neck popping out of place when he dropped him into that elevator shaft. Yeah, it would be gruesome. You'd probably have to see his eyeballs pop out or some bullshit like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
Why not? It's going to be 3D.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, there you go. Put him on a string.
That's what happened with Friday the 13th Part 3. They had an eyeball come to the screen, so.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm sorry, this is taking such a weird turn.
Well, help us back, Les. Help us back.
When I was a kid back in '07, this is proof that this was a heyday for this type of film. I think this is an example of how great the film companies could be.
Mm-hmm.
It was somewhat of a dare to step forward and make a film like this, but it also paved the way for so many others.
Made a footprint.
Yes. And I commend them for doing that.
Hmm. See, and I think that's why I enjoy older shows like this, because you can appreciate, nowadays you flip a switch and your effects happen. Back then you really had to work at it, and you had to move sheets of metal and, all different kinds of things just to achieve what we don't even think twice about now in a movie.
Yeah,
True.
you had to make a whole lot of wax busts to have them burn up in that one scene.
Yeah.
And you probably had to make more than one of each of them to get multiple camera angles and crap like that. Basically burn the thing down more than once.
Yeah. Just to be people like me, like, ooh, I want to see that melt again. One more take.
Mm-hmm.
You sat through Indiana Jones multiple times, didn't you?
Yes.
Just the last scene,
Yeah.
But see, I'm the same way with cartoons. I think that's why you see a deeper than it's just a story. You see the work that went behind that, and how far it's come.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing that this movie did was, I mean, we talked about it being a turning point in Price's career. It proved that he can really do a role like this. I mean, he did a really nice job in this movie of that, pretending to not be the sinister guy while being the sinister guy.
Yeah. Double role.
Uh-huh.
It was definitely not a surprise that he was the villain.
Oh, no. He had done it plenty of times before. Hell, he was Richelieu in the Three Musketeers movie with, what was his name? Who played D'Artagnan in that? What's his name?
Oh.
See his face, I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, let me look real quick.
Not Flynn.
No. Gene Kelly.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Gene Kelly was D'Artagnan. Yeah, he was Richelieu in that movie, which is a big role.
Yes.
And he's the bad guy, really. I mean, he and the Countess de Winter are the villains of that movie. So yeah, he'd done it before plenty of times.
Were you more sympathetic to his role in House of Wax?
In then in Three Musketeers?
Than most anything. When he's a villain, he plays it pretty strong. But in this, was he more? Did you feel more sympathetic toward him?
I don't know if sympathetic is the way to look at it. I tend to think of him as being, I mean, we kind of hinted around him being a classy type actor and person, but I think it's the contrast that makes it interesting. I think it's you see him and he looks like this genteel, well-mannered guy, and that was a bigger thing back then too. Obviously, I mean it's not as big. I mean people are we've kind of rounded the edges, worn the edges off of that sort of thing in today's day and age, but it was more of a big thing back then, and he just seemed like a nice man. And so to see him do some of these really dark and sinister roles it's a fun contrast, and I think that makes it interesting to an extent. I'm not entirely sure that made sense, but
it does. It explains your thought process there, so yeah, I can accept that.
I don't know about sympathetic, but it kind of makes you think. Because here is an artist, and he from all what we knew at that point seemed like just a very nice gentleman. All he wanted to do was just do his work and then be appreciated. And then this tragic thing happened, and it just basically he snaps. and becomes so obsessed that he does these horrific things to bring back his work. I don't know if that's sympathetic, but I don't know if you can be sympathetic about that, but you can kind of. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying.
It's an interesting way to. I mean, essentially, you're twisting the character, and that's. I mean, it's a brutal thing to have to deal with, and the way he portrays it really works.
Yes. Okay. That works for me. And you talk about appreciating this film. We're not the only ones that do, because in 2014, it was deemed, quote, culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress and was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry.
Yay.
If you've not seen this film, you really do need to go take time and watch it. It's a really good film.
Yep. And we say that, and this month we're going to talk about some that are good and some that are not so good. So, this one's one of the good ones.
Yeah. This is one where you can see why he had such a long career in horror. You can see where it came. You can see why it happened. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
We're not going to watch Ghost of Mars again, are we?
You can if you want to.
Yeah, that's up to you, man. But Vincent
Hell
Price
no.
isn't in it, so probably not.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break and be back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It's time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Liz.
All right. For my first pick, I'm going from Boom Studios. It's called Wizard Beach. This is actually the trade. It was a 5-part series, and it starts with a young kid. I don't know if he's much of a kid, I guess teenager, and he lives in like Siberia. It's cold, and then he finds out he can change the weather. So he's off in search of somebody who can teach him this magic so he can change the weather and get rid of the ice. Well, he makes it to the beach, and everybody's like on vacation. So it's definitely an interesting story. I loved the uncle in the story. He's just kind of a hippie, chill out, man. It'll happen when it happens kind of guy. So definitely a fun read. Like I said, they've put it all together for you. Makes it easy to find. Boom Studios.
Yeah, I enjoyed that story quite a bit too.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun.
It was.
Very good choice.
It was a little off, a little weird at times, but not ever in a bad way. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Mike, you're next.
Okie dokie. So my first pick is an Image book, and this is the Thought Bubble Anthology 2019. So if you're not familiar, and if you're not from the UK, you might not be. Thought Bubble is a big festival that gets held in the north of England in November, usually, and a lot. There ends up being it covers a lot of different stuff, but there ends up being a lot of like writers and comic people there. And so this is an anthology of short stories and art that they put together for this year, and it features a really long list of very talented people, obviously, and so it's going to be a lot of fun to take a look at this and see what kind of talent the UK is putting out these days.
Nice.
That's so good.
Alrighty, I am next, and for my first choice, I'm going with Boom Studios. It is the first issue of the event Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, called Hellmouth. So this is the first time both books kind of come together, and they're obviously dealing with the Hellmouth in Sunnyvale. It's written by Jordi Belair and Jeremy Lambert, with art by Eleanor Carnellini. And they've been kind of going to this direction for pretty much since the books have started up. So I'm excited about this. This is going to be really cool. Because we have Buffy and Angel not exactly seeing eye to eye, so we're kind of gone opposite of the way the show went, which is cool, and it should be fun. They're battling Drusilla and Spike.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, the Angel thing has been interesting. They have started that series off. It's quite a bit different than it was back in the day, back to what we're used to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's still very interesting.
Yeah, I've been digging it. Of course, it's Brian Hill writing it too. So
yes, which helps.
I'm very impressed myself.
Alrighty, Les, you are next.
My first choice comes from IDW. And once again, we're going back to previous established stories. This is Cobra Kai, the Karate Kid saga continues. In this, we're going to take a different slant on the first movie of Karate Kid and look at the story from the eyes of Johnny Lawrence, the tough guy ringleader of the group that terrorized Daniel. And Johnny was the All Valley tournament champion prior to Daniel's participation. So this should be fun to see how they warp it, how they give you a second perspective. To me, it's similar to the book Grendel, and I'm not talking the comic book, but the novel, which was telling the story of Beowulf from Grendel's view. So I'm kind of looking forward to this and hope that it does well.
Should be interesting.
It is definitely an interesting way to relook at that series of stories, I guess.
Alrighty, Liz.
Well, my second pick is from the DC Comics Black Label. This one's going to kind of be different. It's the Joker and Harley Criminal Sanity #1. This is going to be a 9-part series. Now, this one they have already stated will stand alone. It's not part of the, if I can pronounce it, continuity.
Continuity.
Yeah, there you go. It's not part of that. So it's kind of a, I guess, call it a what if. In this story, Harley is actually Harleen, and she's a profiler. She's a like behavior scientist and that kind of thing. And she comes home one night to see that her roommate has been brutally murdered. And at the scene, Joker's kind of left his calling card. Well, they said in this story, Joker's not going to be that crazy, whacked out, character that he normally is. He's going to be more of a Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, the guys who kept it together while in the shadows they were killing and eating people. So, should be interesting because they say the deeper she gets into this and gets closer to finding out who he is and how he's linked with all these other homicides, she starts to battle her own demons and I guess kind of loses her mind. So, should be kind of cool. Like I said, definitely a different take on the Joker and Harley story that we're used to. So, I'm kind of excited to see where it goes.
Harley and the Joker meets Hannibal?
Kinda. Probably. That's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's kind of a lot like what it sounds like. Interesting.
But it kind of sounds like he has a kind of like Tim Burton's Batman or Joker. how he kind of walked around as a regular guy, but underneath the makeup he was the Joker, you know? To me, it kind of gives me that vibe to where maybe she thinks it's two different people. So, we'll see.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to this also, but mainly because it's a Black Label title. And
Yep.
DC has been doing real well with Black Labels.
They really have. And they're different kind of stories than what they would have put out on their normal label. So, I'm happy with that, too.
Alrighty, Mikey.
Okie dokie. So my second pick is from IDW Publishing. And I am picking Usagi Yojimbo number 5. We're actually jumping on the kind of the end of a story here, but it's a pretty short story. So this is the end of a story they call The Hero. And I believe it really just started last issue. So grab that too while you're at it, because it's a really fun little story. Usagi has agreed to escort an old friend of his, a nice lady, while she's trying to escape her abusive husband. And so obviously Usagi is a samurai, so the samurai code is going to come into it somewhere along the line somehow. But that's honestly what makes these stories kind of cool, is that Stan Sakai does a nice job of one, giving us plenty of action, and some really interesting bad guys along the way, and also keeping that code of the samurai idea going through his stories, and it's a lot of fun. I'm liking this book a lot.
Yeah, I am too. I'm not sure what it is. Not that on his run from Dark Horse was bad. It was really good, but it just seems like I'm not sure what it is. It seems like it's gone up a notch or something like that. Is that kind of the feeling you're getting, Mikey?
Yeah, because honestly, I never really. I mean, I I would pick one up occasionally and kind of see what was going on in the Dark Horse run, and I never really got into it. Yeah. I have not had any trouble getting into this one. This grabbed me from issue 1, and it has been really good the whole time. I don't know I'm not sure what the difference is, but there's clearly something. Yeah. Maybe I mean, I hate to speculate even, but maybe he's got a little more freedom with the story from IDW. I don't know.
I don't know. It just seems like it's a little different, but yeah, it's definitely been grabbing my attention a lot more than the Dark Horse is. And not that the Dark Horse books were not as good. It just I'm not sure what it is. There's just something there, and yeah, I've been enjoying the hell out of this run so far. So definitely get on this book while you can, because it's early enough in the series that you can jump in and totally understand everything that's going on. Yeah, I believe this was just a 2-parter because the first story arc was only like 3 issues. So yeah, definitely get on while you can.
Totally.
All right, I'm up next, and for my second choice, I'm going with a collection from DC Comics, and it's called All-Star Comics: Only Legends Live Forever. And this collects the 70s run of All-Star Comics 58 through 74, Adventure Comics 461 through 466, and DC Special number 29, which was the run of Justice Society, and then the All-Winter Squad that was kind of joined in, and that included the Earth 2 Robin. Our first appearance of Power Girl was in this run. Huntress eventually showed up, if I'm not mistaken. But these stories, which were written by Gary Conway and Paul Levitz and others, and included art from Wally Wood, Rick Estrada, Joe Stanton, just to name a very few. This was my introduction pretty much to the Justice Society, other than maybe the team-ups with the Justice League. So this is how I got to know these characters, and I highly recommend this collection. It's a hardcover collection, but it's going to be worth it because it's a ton of pages, and it's a great read.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm glad they're bringing this forward because it was an excellent run. And even if you, luckily you got in because it was an introduction for you. And for me, it was a continuation because I was there when the Justice Society, Justice League crossovers were going on.
Right.
And those were full tilt. So.
And this was actually my introduction to Wally Wood. I was not aware of his art. I didn't know his art. Of course, I was a kid at the time, so yeah.
Yeah.
But this was, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting art. And then of course I learned more about his stuff, and it's spectacular stuff. So.
Yes, it is.
And Les, you're next.
My second choice comes from IDW. Getting into the time of year we're in, the celebration that's coming up, I have chosen Ghosts, Classic Monsters of Pre-Code Horror Comics. In this, we're going to look back at various illustrators. Ross Andrews one, Sid Check, John Blummer, Alex Toth. These are some of the artists that are going to be featured in this book, with everything from haunted houses to zombies to a love story, just all sorts of stuff that is, to me, is fascinating. It's a pretty good sized book, yet this is when there was no code for comics. This is like the EC type of comics that were coming out. So without restrictions, they got away with a lot of stuff. This should be an interesting collection for it.
Yeah, this was on my radar as well. So I'm excited about this. Go ahead.
Sounds pretty sweet.
And I'm sure Yo Books is involved with this somehow, because that's been kind of right down their alley. Collecting some of the older material.
True.
So, all right, and our honorable mention this week is.
Our honorable mention this week is I hesitate to call it a trade, but because it's kind of not. It's really it's a collection though, and it's from IDW, and it's called Screwball: The Cartoonists Who Made the Funnies Funny. And this is actually kind of a scholarly look at screwball comic strips back in the beginning of the comic strip as a genre, really, kind of working its way up towards the modern day. It's not going to be exactly that far. I mean, it focuses on a lot of the older and more familiar stuff, and honestly has a whole bunch of stuff that's hasn't been seen in a long time, which is really awesome. And so some of the names that you might have heard before would be E.C. Seeger, who was the guy who created Popeye, Winsor McKay, Rube Goldberg, and yes, it is that Rube Goldberg. Milt Gross is attached to this as well. I think he did the cover of it. And so there's just going to be a whole bunch of really cool and interesting stuff in a book like this. This is the kind of crap I live for. It's awesome. So yeah, Screwball.
Cool.
Nice.
Yep, this should be fun.
Alrighty. Any special shout-outs this week?
I will throw a brief one in real quick. Since it's October and we're neck deep in scary movies, I thought I might go ahead and make a passing comment about Sid Haig, who was a mainstay of horror movies for a long time. He passed away last week, and so we throw our condolences out to his family and friends and a ton of horror movie fans.
Oh, yeah.
They're just about to play one more night of 3 sometime this month, which will be the last movie. They said filming this one, he's got very limited scenes because there was only so much he could do, but he wanted to do it and wanted to give his last performance to his fans, so I'll definitely have to go watch it now.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. I heard they did a lot of rewriting because he just had the health issues were just
Yeah. He just couldn't.
And it's sad to hear that, but yeah.
But it's also cool that they could make adjustments and get it done.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Our thoughts are with his family and friends, and obviously the legion of fans. So definitely.
Yep.
Okay. Any others?
No.
Not here.
Okay, we'll do our regular shout-outs. Obviously, we want to thank the folks at Pop Goes Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be part of such a great group of shows. We highly recommend you check them out. There will be a link in our show notes. As well as our brothers and sisters in the Pottern family. We want to thank them for supporting us on Twitter. We highly recommend that you go check them out, and the easiest way to do that is just do a search, #PotternFamily, one word, and just scroll through, and whatever catches your fancy, just download that episode and have fun. Thank you guys for your support, as always. May the Martyr for supplying the music to our podcast. Definitely check out their music. There will be a link in our show notes for them as well. And finally, you, dear listener, we do appreciate your support. We do appreciate you listening to us every week. We love to hear from you. We'd love to have your feedback. If you have a comment, question, suggestion, complaint, observation, whatever, we'd love to hear from you. And there are several ways you can do that. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and click on the About Us tab, and there's a contact form that you can fill out if you so desire. By all means, follow us on Facebook. It is the Fellowship of the Geeks, and while you're there, hey, we've already talked about it. We got our monthly meetup on the 12th. By all means, let us know if you're interested or you're going to go. Then, of course, our appearance at Red Pegasus on the 26th. There's Facebook events for both these appearances, so definitely check those out. And we're also on Twitter, obviously, at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us there. And if you like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, please do so. Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_Geek. And I can be found at TomTCGeek. And wherever you download or listen to our shows, if you would take a couple moments to rate and review us, it would be greatly appreciated. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to watch House of Wax.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, watch anything Vincent Price. Definitely. But hey, it's Halloween month. There's going to be a lot of horror films out there. Just enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
Although, in the age of streaming and DVDs and all that, you can watch it anytime, but there's going to be a lot of it. There's going to be a lot to choose from for the next few weeks, so by all means, enjoy it.
And if you need any help selecting something, #AllTheHorror.
Definitely.
There's going to be a whole bunch of movies getting talked about.
Mm-hmm.
It's going on now.
Yeah, I was about to say that already started October 1st, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, definitely get on that. Go to Twitter, #AllTheHorror, and check it out. And our special episode will be out the 16th. Is that correct?
16th or the 17th, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So, somewhere, 15th, 16th, 17th. So not too long from now.
We'll blast it. Don't worry.
Oh, definitely. Alrighty. Until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,